welcome to Missed Checkpoints, the video game book club podcast. Today we're wrapping up our discussion of Catherine. I'm your host Marcus, and joining me today as always are the homies. First off, we have Dante.
Yeah, we do.
Next we have Trevor.
I shouldn't have finished this game.
Should not?
I should have just stopped where we left off last time. It would have been a happier ending.
And last but not least, returning from Evo champion, we have Greg.
What's going on, people?
Well, I think I want to kick it to Greg first, just because he was not here on the last episode. And what do you think about the story, at least that first part of the first 5 chapters? So, like, what do you think about Vincent and Catherine, the Catherines?
So I started out, I guess at the beginning of the game, I kind of liked Vincent, and as you start making decisions, or he starts making decisions, based on the actions that go on, I just kind of start liking him less and less.
Okay.
And it's mostly just because, and maybe it's just a personal thing with me, I hate seeing people just make terrible decisions, and you just like, the obvious thing is here. Why don't you just do it? Why don't you just stop trying to pursue this? And it's like he has multiple times of just being like, you could just get this out the way now and just say this, but he's just kind of like, nah, I'm just going to figure out a way to lie around this. So it just made me just kind of like cringe a little bit, like, oh my God. But yeah, I think up until the point that, that we're at the end of the first show, I definitely don't really, I really don't like him that much.
Okay. And I'm asking the questions out of order. You have played Catherine before, right? You were the only one with any Catherine exposure.
Yeah.
Do you remember how far you got?
Oh, man, he was having the dreams before we played this game.
Yeah.
That exposure?
Yeah, so I think I got up to like, it was either day 3 or day 4 or something like that.
So we got further in that first part than you had played. Yeah. Okay. Do you remember why you stopped playing?
So definitely there's a difficulty, or maybe this could just be me sucking at video games again, but I feel like there's definitely a difficulty spike in the game, and then I want to say that was one of the things that just kind of made me bounce off it, and with that in combination of there's just probably something else I was playing at the time, and just kind of didn't really go back to it, but I definitely feel like there's a difficulty spike in this game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's one of those, like, I forget what the curve is called exactly, but, like, it starts out pretty low, it hits a peak, and then, in my opinion, it goes kind of back down. Did anybody else feel that?
In the later chapters?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it necessarily got too difficult.
I can think of,
I never said it got too difficult.
Like, I think it was more frustrating than difficult. Like, Ninja Gaiden Black, some of the bosses were difficult, but this game, I think, was more frustrating than difficult.
All right, well, I'm going to have to do the opposite of that. I think Ninja Gaiden was frustrating and difficult, and I think this game was, like, it was a puzzle game. It made you stop and think,
And I think to me, that's where some of the frustrating levels were, where you actually had to stop and think, because, like, when I'm playing this game, I'm thinking you're supposed to be moving at all times because there's blocks falling from underneath you. But then there were certain levels that you get to where
you start off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I think for me, it wasn't necessarily like, it was like situations that were difficult, but it was like specific levels that had a difficult section. So, like, especially in this second half that we're about to talk about, there were a couple of levels, I want to say 2 or 3, where it was like, this specific situation is difficult because you don't have as much time since you start off at the hard part, versus if you were to work your way up to it, you'd have a lot more of a time to experiment and figure things out.
And I think that's one of my biggest gripes with the game is in those areas, like especially some of the boss battles. It's just kind of like you're trying to figure out. Okay, so I know I need to get up here, but I need to try and think this out logically. But then at the same time, you kind of, well, at least I was kind of panicking, thinking like, oh man, I see that I'm starting to run out of time, but I'm trying to think this. Or it's kind of like the thing of you make one bad decision and then it just snowballs because you try and go back and then you're trying to figure it out. Okay, well, I went back these steps. Or sometimes I would go back too many steps, and then I'm trying to say, okay, well, how did I do this again?
So you waste too much time, basically.
Yeah.
It's a really weird give and tell where you can get to a certain point in a lot of the puzzles, but if you start with the bad foundation, you know what? This all might be a metaphor for relationships. If you start with a bad foundation, you might not be able to reach the climax, if you get what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's pretty weird because I do think there are some situations where it's just like you can kind of hang yourself because like at any point you can go backwards and undo something, and there are actually some gimmicks you can do with the undo, specifically in the boss sequences with some of their attacks, that you can kind of wipe off some things off so you don't have to deal with them. But I think I didn't really have as much difficulty with the bosses as it was like specific puzzles. And just kind of tying it back to what Dante was saying, overall I think that the game kind of ramps up in difficulty around chapter 6. And then
like 6 and 7, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't really think 7 was that difficult. Like I think there was 4 stages, and I believe only one stand out. And really, I want to say the same in chapter 6. At least for me, only one of them stands out as being difficult, and the rest were pretty like as long as like you paid attention to the techniques, something that Trevor alluded to in the last episode. I feel like you would do all right. One more question for you, Greg. Is this your first, or how many Atlas games have you played? That was something that we were all talking about.
I'd have to look at the full release list, but I had played, I got pretty far into Persona 3, I beat Persona 4, and I played I guess if this counts, I played the Persona fighting games.
Yeah.
Those. And then I got pretty far into Persona 5, but didn't finish it, But yeah, I've had experience with their other games.
Okay, cool.
So what you're saying is this game met your expectations?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, it's an Atlas-ass game, pretty much.
It's super Atlas.
Yeah.
All that style.
One quick go back. So we were talking about the difficulty and just how the puzzles work and essentially how you don't rely on undo, but it's a very helpful feature. So in the original Japanese release of this game, on normal they did not have undo. Do you think you would have finished this game without undo?
Nope.
Yes.
There's no chance.
Yes.
They would have had to have more checkpoints, which I think if you put it on easy, they increase the amount of checkpoints, but
I don't know, man. Like, I think you guys are not giving yourself enough credit. Just because, like, I hardly used undo. Like, most of my undos were, like, going back 2 moves or a move. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to, like, I watched some people play this game, and they'd, like, go back 5 or 6 or 7 moves or something like that. And I don't think I undoed more than, like, 50 times in this game. And I think I could have played this game without undoing. You would just have to be a little bit more methodical, but it is very doable, especially on your first playthrough. I think it's very doable.
No, I know I used undo more than 100 times on like specific puzzles.
I don't know. I think also too, like, and this is going to be me sounding like a baby gamer or whatever, but the more I got into this game, the more I realized, like, the part that you're playing isn't the part of the game that is, I don't want to say entertaining, but that, like, is not the content that you're there for. You're there for the story. So, I'm not going to lie. There's one specific puzzle that I was like, I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure this out. Let me just see how I get past this particular part, and then I will just play the rest of the level out. And so I think I did that on the one where you start off with the diagonal. It's going to sound really stupid to the listeners, and you guys may not know what I'm talking about, but it's the level where you're like, the columns, you start off and they're in like a diagonal shape, and they're stacked really tall, and you got to like pull and push. And
the really short one?
The really short level, like the level that takes like 90 seconds.
Yep.
I was just like, I don't want to waste my time trying to figure this one out, because it's going to take me a long-ass time to figure it out. I'm here for the story. So let me go ahead and just see what the solution is. Like, I tried to do it maybe like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, I'm nowhere near where I need to be with this. So I already knew, like, it was going to take me too long. So I just went ahead and looked at the solution for that particular section.
Does anyone think that this game need or could have used like an in-game like hint system or anything like that at all? Or
that would have been nicer, like maybe just having suggested techniques for a level or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it just goes back to what we said in the first episode, or if you could just re-pull up or have some way to access the techniques you've previously learned, so you could like just brush up on them. Like, not even if you could just act them out, but if you could just watch them do it, then I think that would have been beneficial, because there are a couple of sequences, especially in the like this back half, where I feel like chapter 8, I think in particular, it's like really like 2 or 3 techniques that I use for the majority of that level, and those did me just fine. And it would have been cool to been able to pull up and see like, okay, what are these other things that I could have done, or I don't know. Not that it would have like made my experience any better, but it just would have been nice to be able to see what you've learned so far and like kind of try to mimic it and actually learn it.
I think that was one of the issues I had with techniques, is just kind of, I feel like you look at it and they explain it, but it's like I couldn't put 2 and 2 together as far as that, right? Like, some things made sense.
Watching is different than doing.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like I'll see it, and some things were easy enough that I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then there are some like kind of, I guess, at least they look kind of obtuse to me, like just trying to think about this, like, well, hold up, well, how would you even, or maybe that you see it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. And then it's like, within the context of you actually being in a puzzle and having, you know, trying to race against time, it's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to think about this in this moment and see this and be like, oh yeah, this is, I could do this here, or I could do the spider in this situation or whatever.
I think
so.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, admittedly, one of the things I do for most games is like, if I feel like the game's going to be challenging, I normally like, first thing I'll do is go into Google and be like, tips and tricks or whatever, or just like get some fundamentals just to make sure I know the mechanics well.
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody was saying, yo, you definitely need this Inazuma technique. And I watched it and I kept watching it. I'm like, this looks so good,
bruh.
But then when I tried to actually like apply it, it was just like, oh my god, what am I doing? And I felt like a toddler trying to stack up blocks and just watching them constantly just tumble. And I think I ended up watching that video for about 10 minutes straight before I actually like got it down packed.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a testament to this game in a sense, almost similarly to Ninja Gaiden, where Ninja Gaiden you can go through. Yes, I'm comparing the 2 games. Ninja Gaiden, you can kind of go through, do your thing, and you can kind of get through combat like however you may choose. And I feel like this game throws so many techniques at you that like some of the techniques that they threw at you were like, you like bomb an entire area and all the blocks go away, or like I don't think I ever did that, but there has to be somebody that like that's how they played, you know, once they figured out that technique and that was how they played. And I think that's kind of cool, because I think I was pretty solid on the first couple of techniques, and I think I really used those as my building blocks, and I like, no pun intended, but I kind of used that as my basis. And when I saw techniques that I thought, oh, this would be really useful, or like what I do now, I don't like, that would be beneficial to how I play now, then I would try to implement that technique. But there are definitely a lot of techniques that it was just like, I see that, and I see how that would be useful, but I already do this other thing that achieves that same goal, so I don't need to learn that.
Yeah.
Cool. I will admit, like, the coolest / weirdest thing about this game, and I haven't had it for a lot of the games we've played so far, but I was constantly thinking about the puzzles in this game. Like, in like real life, I was like, man, I want to be like thinking about playing Catherine and just doing the puzzle sequences, and I haven't had that for a game we've played where it was like that was constantly on my mind. Not to the extent that this game was, which I don't know if that's like good or bad, that you guys didn't experience that, but I was constantly thinking like, I want to be playing some Catherine puzzles right now. Like even now, like I haven't played this game in a week, and like all this past week I was like, should I just boot up Catherine just to play some of these puzzles? Because I wanted to skip all the story stuff and just play the game.
Well, after I finished, I really wanted to try the Tower of Babel. But
It's not the same. It's not the same though. Oh wait! I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Rapunzel. Like
No. There's like a challenge mode called Tower of Babel.
yeah. I just wanted to play more Catherine, but I didn't want to do like play the actual game. I just wanted to do the puzzles, which is like a weird sensation. That's not something that I've ever experienced with the game. Where it's like, let me just get this part of the game. I don't want the other stuff, you know?
Oh yeah, and going back and listening to the show, I didn't check out any of Catherine that was at Evo. It was there and it was on stage, but I didn't watch any of it. But I just realized they had finally got around to posting all the tournament footage on YouTube. So it's up there if you guys.
I want to check it out. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm really interested in seeing what competitive Catherine looks like. Well, I guess let's dig into this story. So, I think where we left off, Vincent had got a call. This is the end of chapter 5. So Vincent wakes up in his empty room. He gets a call from a mysterious guy named Steve, who claims it's Catherine's boyfriend. And Vincent like kind of panics and he hangs up, but Steve calls him back and threatens to kill Vincent. And Vincent's just kind of like, I'm going to break it off with her, I promise. And Steve's like, well, yeah, you better. And like they kind of hang up. And that kind of wigs out Vincent. And I think what we left was like, I play, every game we play, I play with subtitles on. So the entire time, whenever they mentioned Catherine in the situation, they spelled it with the C, like New Catherine. And I got a little bit further into the game when we started when we recorded that episode. And so I saw a little bit into that. And I was like, maybe it's not actually the Catherine we think is playing. Maybe the game is trying to throw us off the scent or whatever. And I didn't know any more than Dante or Trevor, but that was just something that I was throwing out there. At this point, how are you feeling about the situation, Greg? How did you feel about this phone call that Vincent got from Steve, and what's going on in your mind as far as him actually doing this, breaking it off with New Catherine?
So I was hoping that this was gonna make him be like, all right, well, obviously, this, Catherine with a C, she's got too much going on. This is a good point for me to break things off. And then it didn't occur to me that this could potentially be his his girlfriend, having somebody on the side. And I started thinking about that, this is a little weird if this is actually the case. But I really was hoping this was going to be kind of like, all right, well, this is going to cause me to set things straight, and then we'll try and see where this goes from here. But it doesn't seem to turn out that way.
Mm-hmm. You guys got anything to add, Trevor or Dante?
No, I'm still feeling the same way as last time, where it's just like, man. Well, actually, no, I guess there's a change, because before Vincent was kind of like on the outside, looking into his life, watching all these things happen around him. But now it's like he's trying to take responsibility for it. He's feeling a little bit of the guilt, even if it might be too late.
It might be.
I mean, he's already kind of not necessarily at this point. He hasn't figured out what's going on in these nightmares.
He's too far gone. He's too far gone.
But he thinks it's related at this point.
Gotcha. Well, so this is chapter 6 now. So this is where we are picking up. So the next day, later that day, Vincent meets up with new Catherine at the bar, and he asks her about Steve, but she claims that she doesn't know anybody named Steve, and maybe it's a mistaken identity, or maybe it's a different Catherine he knows, which basically throws Vincent into a loop, because he's thinking, like, maybe that's, when she says, maybe it's a different Catherine, his mind, rightfully so, automatically goes to old Catherine. He's like, has she been cheating on me this entire time? And, like, he basically completely chickens out of breaking up with new Catherine, and he just is fixated on the idea that old Catherine is cheating on him. And new Catherine leaves. Vincent kind of tells her, "Hey, you can't come over. I need to. I haven't been sleeping well." Like the excuse that he's been giving everybody. I haven't been sleeping well, so don't come over tonight. Then his friends show up, Johnny, Toby, and Orlando, and that entire conversation, like the subject matter that they're just talking about, old Catherine potentially being a cheater, and Erica kind of like basically says that what you are actually doing is no different than what you think that old Catherine is doing. But he goes and does a full-on hypocritical statement by saying he couldn't take it if old Catherine was unfaithful to him, which is ridiculous because he's doing that to her. And Johnny and Erica basically change the topic and start talking about the nightmares that have been all over the news, and that's a lot of what the bar patrons have been talking about. And Vincent basically ends up going home and drinking some more, as he gets to do this when he gets like in his drunk states, where he's kind of replaying conversations that he had that day in his mind. So he's replaying his conversation that he had with new Catherine, and basically her denying knowing a Steve. And then also his conversations that he had with his boys about old Catherine potentially being unfaithful to him. And he basically passes out in his bedroom or apartment. And I think that nightmare sequence that day, it introduces a couple of new mechanics. So it introduces bomb blocks, which is like blocks that basically once you stand on them, a fuse starts going. And they damage blocks. Once it explodes, it damages blocks around it. And they have two different versions of those that explode bigger or smaller. I think this is the first chapter that like you use, like it has every single bomb or block type up to this point. So you have the crumple blocks, you have the ice blocks, you have the heavy blocks, these bomb blocks, the spring blocks, the trap blocks. It has all of them. So that this was I think chapter 6 was really fun and entertaining because it was so varied compared to the other chapters where they were more themed, where it was like, okay, we're just introducing this block, so that's all you're going to see. This one was kind of like, okay, you've mastered all those individually, now see how they interact and how these puzzles with all the blocks are. Did you guys catch on to that, or did you guys like that about it? Dante, did you like that?
So, Chapter 6 is probably not the best chapter to ask me about. This is a chapter where
you were raging,
I
right?
hit my wall. I thought I was going to have to drop the difficulty for a second. I was like, man, how do I become a sheepdog?
I see what you did there. Ninja sheep.
Ninja sheep, yes. And you get this in a later chapter where they like really culminate all of the blocks and techniques you've learned up to that point. But chapter 6, I don't really remember there being that many ice blocks in chapter 6, to be honest.
It was just the mere presence of them, because up until this point, there was only ice blocks in the chapter that introduced ice blocks, I believe.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, but man, chapter 6, dude,
Did you?
6? Oh,
Did you guys have the difficulty that Dante had with Chapter 6? If you guys remember, you guys have.
Yeah, I definitely was having issues there.
Do you remember like what it was, or like was there a specific chapter? Because I there was a specific chapter for or section for me, I should say.
I can't remember what part of it, but I definitely remember it. I was having
Like-
issues there.
in specific, besides for me going from 40 pillows to 5
Jeez.
in the course of one stage.
Pillows being retries.
Yes. It was mostly like there'd be the occasional section where you had these new blocks, and I assumed that I needed to utilize the new blocks, the crumple blocks, or not the crumple blocks, but the explosive blocks.
Yeah.
But they would lead you into situations where you wouldn't be able to climb anymore, essentially. So for the longest time, I was like, the solution has to be to use these blocks, when the actual solution for me was most of the time to avoid using them.
Yep. Okay, so there you go. Because I was like, why is he having such difficulty? And I think that's the reason why. Because the first two parts, you messaged
Because they have
us.
a lot of sections where, okay, so this is just a generic thing, but let's say you had 5 columns in total. The first 2 columns have solid blocks. There's a gap in between them, and then the next 2 columns have solid blocks. And you try to climb up one side, but then you'd realize at some point, oh, I need to actually get over to the other if I want to actually get to the next checkpoint or get to the next, like, big footing area or whatever. And because the way the explosive blocks work, your tower can become lopsided, and since you can only see a certain number of blocks high, you can't really anticipate that without, like, I don't know, getting up there and then realizing, oh, there's no more stuff for me to climb on this side,
Yeah.
and I don't have a good way to go over to the other side at this point. Undo, 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 undo. I am out of undos.
I gotcha. Yeah, so for me, on this level, and most of the levels, like whenever there was bomb blocks or even crumble blocks, those I specifically tried to avoid. So I guess the situation or the difference between how me and you played is when I saw that, I didn't think like, oh, I need to implement that, which, to be fair, up to...
I saw the techniques, man. I saw the
Yeah,
techniques.
yeah,
They were doing
exactly.
such cool stuff with the techniques.
And really, like, up to that point, every other chapter we've played, you've had to use or interact with the new blocks. So it makes sense why you assume that, hey, like, these techniques are showing how to use these bomb blocks, and this is the chapter that they introduced bomb blocks, therefore I need to use bomb blocks. And I, on the other hand, was like, that's gonna like ruin my whole like thing I got going on, so I'm gonna do my best to try to avoid using these. So, because I remember, I think you were the first one to get to chapter 6 and complete it, and you were warning us. I think this was even before we recorded the first part. You were telling us,
Correct.
like, yo, I'm thinking about dropping down the difficulty. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? And you told us, like, this thing took me forever, and I lost so many lives. It took me so long. And I remember getting to chapter 6, and I was like, okay, I'm about to start chapter 6. Okay, 6-1, it only took me about 10 minutes. Okay, 6-2, it only took me like 15 minutes. When does it get hard? And then for me, it was hard at 6-3. I don't even remember like what specifically about it, but that one...
It's the start.
Okay, that one took
Just
me...
figuring out how to get up off that initial thing in
Yeah,
6-3.
that took me about almost an hour to do. So that was the level for me where it was like, oh, okay, now I see what he's talking about. But you...
See, I hadn't even gotten to 6-3 at that point. 6-3 was like when things started to level out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this only took me 30 minutes to get past. This is nothing.
Yeah, so... But yeah, hearing you explain why you had issues, that makes sense now. Because we were just playing differently. And some of the other things, so beyond using all the block types up to this point and introducing those bomb blocks, at the next landing, you meet a sheep that has a very uncanny resemblance to Orlando, your buddy with the hat, the bucket hat. So now Orlando is also having these nightmares. Obviously, well, not obviously, he doesn't recognize who you are, and you don't outwardly call him by his name, but you're like, his voice is familiar from somewhere. And so he actually mentions that he has not cheated or lived the cheating lifestyle, but somehow he ended up in the nightmares too, which there are some loose ends that I don't think this game does a good job of tying up, or maybe I just didn't see it. So I'm not really sure, like, if that is the case, how is he there? And I don't think they do. And I have a theory.
It does.
Okay,
You'll
have to tell me then. You'll have to tell me then. Okay. And then the last thing that's introduced on this chapter is enemy ants, which are, I think this is the first time that they introduce something that you don't really interact with as Vincent. So I want to say the chapter before, or the day before, there was an ant in your bedroom. But Vincent doesn't see it, but you as the player see it in the cutscene. And it was really weird to see this thing pop up prematurely, I will say. And we'll go into that here in a bit. But, Chapter 6 was a doozy. And it culminated with the fifth boss, the child with the chainsaw. And it is basically the same boss as it's the child boss from before, with disturbing modifications, mainly being a chainsaw for an arm, a pincer for the other arm, and a Gatling gun in its mouth. So I know Trevor said the baby was super uncomfortable, unseating for him. So I wanted to ask, like, how did you feel about the baby with the chainsaw? Was it better?
It wasn't that bad this time.
Oh, okay.
Like it didn't yell "Daddy, Daddy," the entire time. So that didn't make it. That made it, less
more bearable,
unnerving. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I didn't have too much trouble with these levels, I guess. Like, I don't know what it is, but the hardest levels that I had encountered up to this part were still Chapter 5 with the ice levels.
Man, the ice levels are so fun for me. I love those.
Like, even with these bomb blocks, I was playing the way you were, where basically you were avoiding, stepping on them and activating them. And which is pretty much what I learned to do when we were playing on the levels with the ice blocks. Like, you just learn to avoid certain blocks, how to spider around stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
some of us learned it.
Yeah, throwing out those techniques. I didn't know you didn't just spider around the block.
But yeah, I think the only difference was, like, even with the ice blocks, you could grab another block and pull your way across them without sliding. Whereas with these blocks, you just kind of had to avoid them at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mostly did that out of instinct, that I thought they would kill you if you stood on them too long or something, or if you stood too close to them. Like,
I thought that too.
Did anybody...
Originally, I thought that.
Oh, so it doesn't do it at all?
No, you don't die if you stand on it when it explodes.
Well, that was my thinking when I started these levels. So I just avoided them altogether.
Anytime I accidentally even activated one, I would just try to push it all the way off to the side or off the ledge, so that way I wouldn't have to deal with crumple blocks. Because, like I said, like, bomb blocks were number one, my least favorite, or up to this point, the worst type of block, and then right behind that is the crumple block. So the bomb blocks cause crumple blocks. So I was like, I don't want to deal with any of this.
It's funny because it actually teaches you that technique after you get through these levels.
Yeah, and that's something that I noticed even in the first part too, where it was like, well, it would have been nice if you would have showed me this like 2 sequences sooner, because I just completed the part where this would have been useful.
Yeah.
Wait, which technique?
Like to push an activated bomb block off the edge.
Oh, yeah. Well, it looks like a good technique. It's another one of those where, oh, man, that seems like it'd be useful. Then you try to implement it, and it's like, oh, well, this completely messes up everything.
Messes up everything for you.
Isn't it like they have to tell you after you start doing some of the bomb stages that you can put the brown block over it, and then it doesn't, it causes the explosion to not affect the other blocks?
Yeah, that's later too, and it's like, I mean, either you figure that out in the normal pace of playing, or like that's completely new to you. There's like no in between. Either you already figured it out and they're giving you old news, or it's like, wow, this would have been beneficial to know, like, the last level.
I think the other thing, too, is you can go back and replay levels. So that may be something that people find beneficial. They may want to go back and replay a level to get a higher score. And so with those techniques, that gives them the opportunity to do it.
Nerds. And just going back to Child with Chainsaw, pretty straightforward attacks. If Vincent's close, chainsaw stabs, fires a Gatling gun at range and causes blocks to fall from the sky that crush Vincent. And then it also does releases these buzzsaws which travel vertically and horizontally around the tower. And those were the things that killed me the most because there was a lot of the spring blocks, and I would accidentally spring into a chainsaw that was higher up on the tower. And so I died a couple times to that.
I completely forgot about those. Yeah, those were the worst parts of this level.
Yeah. And then the only other thing it did was I think it cut once you get to a specific length or I think distance. So I think it's once you get a third through the tower, it cuts off a third of the tower, and then it does it again. I think it's the right third of the tower gets cut when you get a third of the way up, and then once you get near the end, it does it again. A third of what's remaining. So it's basically making the tower smaller, which was kind of nifty, but I don't think ultimately, I think it was mostly for visual effect to kind of make use of the chainsaw, because I don't really think gameplay-wise, it was that noticeable. At least it didn't seem that noticeable to me. But, did you guys have any issues with the boss, I guess, besides the chainsaw attack? The chainsaw blades, I guess?
Not really. For me, I feel like the bosses were the easiest part of this game.
I don't know about easiest, but it was a change of pace because it wasn't like you were stuck on the puzzle part. It was just kind of like a race to the end. Right?
I don't know. I feel like you have more freedom during the boss fights for the most part. There's one boss fight where that's not the case, but pretty much the more tools you give me, I feel like the better I do. And most of the boss fights felt like they gave you a lot of tools to make progress.
Yeah, that's fair. After you defeat or you get to the end of the chapter and wake back up, Vincent wakes up with ants all over his body, and there is a huge trail leading from his open window to the gift that old Catherine had left him. New Catherine also wakes up screaming because she also has ants crawling over her, which is Vincent gets super annoyed when he sees her there. And she opens up the window, crumples up the ant-covered blanket, and throws it out the window. And then she asks who brought Vincent the gift, which is a cake. And he doesn't want to tell her that old Catherine brought it because she still doesn't know about her. So he's like, oh, I have a sweet tooth, and that's why it's here, and that's why it's bringing all these ants. And then he asked her, how'd you get in here? And then she's like, well, you don't remember texting me last night, asked me to come over because you were feeling better? And obviously he doesn't. And then he's kind of just thinking to himself, and you can kind of see her in the background just trying to get his attention. And she basically kind of says out loud, there's this movie I want to see, and this is the last week it's going to be showing, and I really want to see it, and basically begs him to take her to a horror movie. And he kind of just to appease her, he kind of tells her, he's like, I'll take you tomorrow. And then she gets super excited about and she says it this way, their first official date together, in public. So she's really into it, and I'm interested. How do you guys feel about Catherine basically setting Vincent up to go on this date?
I'm like, this man's wilding.
Right?
You already this deep in, you're like, oh, you know what? Let me go out in public with
yeah.
I mean, as far as Catherine goes, she's gonna Catherine. That's what she does.
Yeah, definitely with her. But it's like, Steve, what you doing? What are you doing? Or Steve, Vincent, what are you doing?
Man, that dude's a lost cause. He's been a lost cause since chapter 2.
I mean, you're not lying. And I just thought it was funny where he just goes from basically I'm gonna break up to her. So like literally later or like within 24 hours, we're gonna go on our first official date together. So later in the day, Vincent meets up with old Catherine, and immediately like they're having lunch together, and he immediately is like, so do you know a guy named Steve? And it's really like hypocritical of him. Obviously, it's super hypocritical. But she basically is like, I don't know a Steve, which kind of puts Vincent on tilt because he's like, exactly, I knew you, and he's like, wait, what? You don't know a Steve? And you can tell like she's really like taking the time to think about it. But she's like, oh well, actually, I do know a Steve. My friend just had a baby, so he's 2 months old, and that's the Steve that she knows. And Vincent is like noticeably bothered because he's like, okay, she's not lying, so that means new Catherine is lying, or what's going on? And she basically questions him like, why are you so bothered that I don't know a Steve? And he kind of gets visibly shaken that she's questioning him, so he just, in his Vincent ways, he just makes up a lie about some coworker named Steve claiming to know her, and that kind of ends that. But she kind of says like, you've been very weird lately. Is there something you want to tell me? And then he kind of makes up it's another classic Vincent lie. He's like, oh, I've just been really stressed out with work and haven't been sleeping well. And I guess that part's true, but she kind of then reveals that she's been getting weird texts lately, but kind of reassures Vincent they are unimportant, even though he's like really like, no, what have they been saying? What have they been saying? But she doesn't tell him anything, and then she flips the script on him and asks like, are you hiding anything? Like, I haven't seen you for a while. You know, you're always acting weird. What's going on with you? And he kind of just brushes it off easily, and their conversation ends. And then, so then I guess he's back at work, and the classic, meeting up with Orlando, and I'm sorry, the classic just when I say he's at work, he's in the bathroom at his job, which he's always at the bathroom at his job. And he calls Steve back and tells him nobody knows who he is, so you're going to have to explain what's going on. And then he asks him, like, so what is this Catherine that you're referring to? What does she look like? And then it kind of pans forward or flashes forward after Steve has described this girl that you, the player, don't get to hear about. And then he's just like, oh, well, that's good. The Catherine I know, she's not the Catherine you're talking about. The Catherine I know is white, which was a hilarious line. Did you guys?
Yeah, I remember that one.
It was kind of Ace Attorney-esque in how he said, he's like, the Catherine I know is white.
Yeah. It was really funny for no reason. I was like, okay, I see you, Steve. You got a little bit of a thing going. Okay. But Steve is pretty upset because he's like, no, we're talking about the same girl because my Catherine described you in great detail, and he's like panicking more and like kind of talking to himself, trying to figure it out, and he mentions that he's already divorcing his wife and leaving her for this Catherine. And Vincent's like, nah, bro, we're not talking about the same person, and that's not my problem, and basically like hangs up on him. And so we're left with, who is this Catherine that Steve is referring to, and what's going on? So do you guys have any theories at this point, did you have any idea of like what's going on?
So I was making up a theory that there was multiple Catherines, and like this is all some part of like the dream, or at least that's what I was thinking. But that was the direction I was going. I don't know if anybody else was having like kind of a similar thing.
Yeah, that's the same thought I had. There were multiple Catherines, or Catherine could somehow change forms.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if this is what I was thinking then, but what I'm thinking now, it's almost like the sheep where everybody is a different projection in their mind during the dream. And maybe Catherine's kind of the same way, like people see her differently depending on who you are.
Their true mind's desire.
Yeah, I guess whatever their preferences are, right?
Mine's exactly.
White. I need you to know
Yeah, I'm kind of was along the same lines as Dante, thinking like, oh, like I didn't think there was another Catherine. I just think that maybe one of these Catherines is like has some type of ability to like alter her form or something and like appear as something else to somebody else. So that's what I was thinking. Then we got chapter 7. So just back at the bar, like he's always, meet up with his buddies, and he kind of updates everybody on the Steve situation while feeling pretty relieved that, oh, well, we're not talking about the same person. And Erica showing up, and she's always talking about the nightmares, and she basically reveals that all the victims have been cheaters and say they were probably cursed, which kind of wigs out Vincent because he's like, there's no way I'm cursed or blah, 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 because he's the only one, dealing with these nightmares. And she leaves, and then Johnny and Orlando reveal that they've been having funny dreams as well. So they can't remember them, but it's very similar to like what Vincent was saying earlier in the game. So it kind of shows us that, oh, like these guys are cheaters as well. And then Vincent, he basically starts to realize here that he can't betray old Catherine. So he's going to break up with new Catherine the next day and come clean and propose to Catherine, old Catherine, which is like an insane plan. And like, I'm just curious, what do you guys think is going through his mind to be like, not only am I going to reveal to my girlfriend that I'm cheating on her, but then I'm going to ask her to marry me. Like, what? Where to do that at?
Like, how does that even work out?
Like,
right?
yeah.
Like, how do you...
Isn't that the absolute worst?
It's like, bro, what, like, not only is she going to be okay with you cheating, but then she's going to want to marry you right after?
Yeah.
Like, what?
You might be a little delusional about that.
But he could have played it like one of those scenes from the movies, like, yeah, being with her made me realize how much I wanted you.
Because that always works out.
Yeah, that always works out.
Yeah, those people aren't scumbags.
Yeah, it's a really it's a reach. It's a reach. So your friends dip, and then new Catherine, she ends up coming out and to the bar and hanging out with you at the table, and she asks if you've ever cheated on anyone, which kind of throws you off, and you don't answer, and she kind of says like, I cheated on somebody in the past once, but I've been faithful to you. And I'm wondering, do you guys think she knows about old Catherine, or is she just testing him, or why do you think she asked him this? Especially after he's having these ideas in his head about breaking up with her. What? Do you think she knows something?
You said, do you think new Catherine knows about old Catherine?
Yeah, or do you think that she just knows that it may not be she knows like it's a girl named Catherine, but just thinking like, I can't be the only one in this guy's life?
I think the way she really slipped into his life like that, she had to have done some research.
That's what I'm thinking too. It seemed like he was like, everything up to this point was like, it seems so calculated, It's like she scoped him out. She's been spying on him or something.
And I guess they don't have social media in this game.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. But let me find my spot. Sorry. She basically says like, "Oh, you've been pretty quiet. I'm the only one here talking." And Vincent kind of tells her he'll see her tomorrow because he hasn't been sleeping well lately and wants to sleep alone again. So he leaves the bar, and immediately, as soon as he leaves the bar, he's in the nightmare sequence, which is new. And I think this sequence, they introduce the red enemy sheeps, which are like more aggressive looking, scary looking sheep. And these are like, when you speak to them or when they talk, they're more like zonked out, I guess you could say. So like, I think what the way they describe them is like, they're sheep that are basically people that lost their sanity and they no longer exist in real life. They're just stuck in this nightmare sequence because they're talking really like out there stuff about eating and killing like a ton of sheep and things like that. You also run into a Johnny sheep. Basically, sheep that's always smoking in his little trench coat, just like Johnny is. So now Orlando and Johnny are. It's come out that they. I mean, you find out that day that they had been having strange dreams, but now you get to run into them on the landing. And the only other like noticeable difference or thing in this nightmare sequence is that Vincent, because he is convinced that old Catherine is the Catherine for him, he is way more confident towards not only the people he's talking to on the landing, but even when he goes into the confessional booth, he's just like, instead of being like, like, what's going on? He knows what he's doing and he has a plan that he's working towards. And it's kind of like a change of character for him, where he's like, yeah, shut up, just ask me what you want to ask me so I can keep going. And so he's way more defiant from this chapter moving forward, because he's a man, quote unquote, with a plan at this point. Did you guys notice that change of confidence in Vincent, or do you think it? Did you catch the correlation between him actually having a plan or like a purpose in his life and him getting more confident in his nightmares?
Yeah, I noticed it, and for me, it seemed out of character simply because of the way I had been answering some of the questions and interacting with the other sheep, because I was trying to play this game full renegade, and then like you basically do it throughout the game, like at each landing, where you're kind of instilling confidence in the other sheep to keep on climbing, and you're teaching them techniques, and it helps them build morale. Mm-hmm. But then once it got to this point, it was kind of like Vincent didn't really have any other option but to be, the overly confident one. And I guess rightfully so, because you still have all the other sheep kind of gassing him up, and he's pretty much the top sheep because of his climbing skills. And I guess it just all kind of goes to his head at this point. But like you said, he has a purpose for doing this as well.
Yeah. I think at this point too, on one of the landings, you find. I think it's a little bit into this chapter, but you learn that Johnny, he reveals that he's betrayed his best friend, and so now like the Johnny sheep saying, "Oh, I betrayed my best friend. I slept around with his woman behind his back." He doesn't want to steal the girl, but he admits that he loves her. So now you're like, okay, what's going on? And I'm thinking like, okay, who is his best friend? Is it Orlando? Is it Toby? Is it Vincent? Like, which girl is he referring to? And like, you talk to the Orlando sheep, but I don't think there is any correlation. Actually, there is a correlation to me, because Orlando reveals that his woman left him, and then so she cheated on him. And later on, he reveals that one of the reasons she left was because his business failed. But now, in real life, she wants to get back together with him. And he's actually contemplating getting back together with her, because I guess he sees that she will improve his life and his livelihood, I guess. And so, like, it made me start thinking, like, is Johnny referring to Orlando? And do you guys have any... I think I've placed or put together the actual situation, but did you guys catch on to that, or did you guys have any theory about what they were talking about, what Johnny's talking about, who's his best friend and whose girl did he steal? Nobody?
Trying to remember exactly which scene that was, because I don't think I caught that.
It was in the landing when you're in sheeps in the nightmare.
Okay.
When you're talking to sheep. So.
Oh, I definitely missed it then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then no worries, because it's just pure speculation right now. But I was like drawing the parallels. I was thinking, okay, Johnny was the reason why Orlando's marriage ended. Like that's what I was going with at this point. I was like, okay, that explains why they're so cynical about love, because they have this love triangle, I guess you could say, with this one woman, and I assumed that she was the one that came in between them or whatever. That was my theory anyways. But yeah, we can talk about the boss then.
Wait,
Go ahead.
Wait, who's the young kid at the table?
Toby.
Toby. Okay. I was mixing up.
Yeah, so Johnny is the one with the hat. Toby is the young kid that's dressed like a mechanic. And then I'm sorry.
Orlando's the one with the hat.
Yeah, Orlando's the one with the hat. Johnny's the one that's always smoking, that sits next to Toby, that is wearing the trench coat, and then Toby is the one with the beanie and the coveralls or overalls that looks like a mechanic.
Gotcha.
Well, let's talk about the boss then. The sixth boss is the Shadow of Vincent, and it's like a giant version of Vincent that's completely in shadow, wearing a white mask with a twisted smile, and like, unlike all the other bosses in this game, it only attacks you once you reach a certain section of the tower, so it's not actively attacking you throughout your ascent of the tower. So its attacks are not even like when you're in a certain range. It's like, okay, once you get to this specific spot, it's going to do this attack. So one of the attacks is it gets to the backside of the tower and it smashes its face through the tower, taking out many of the blocks. And then I think the next, it's not even an attack, but it creates a strip of unmovable blocks in the center of the tower. And then the last is the lights go out and its only light source is the reflection off his gleaming mask. So you're kind of playing like in darkness. And it's kind of interesting because it's a different take. This boss is not actively attacking you. It's just trying to impede you from progressing and making it more difficult, which I thought was like, it was a nice change of pace.
He attacks you with his words.
yeah. He attacks you with its words. Did you guys, did you like that change of pace with this boss? Or did you even notice?
No, I mean, I definitely noticed it. I appreciate it just because, like I said, I think maybe I was the exception of one of the people having kind of issues with some of the boss fights, but for sure I felt like this was one of the easier ones at this point in the game.
Yeah, definitely.
See, this was the one I kind of had issues with because I felt it was a little bit more linear than the rest of the bosses.
What you mean?
Just like, I don't remember the entirety of the stage, but at the very beginning, there's something very specific you have to do just to get up. And there's like a couple situations where I feel like there's like one real solution to it.
I think it was like a bunch of the unmovable blocks, and they were kind of spaced in a way that you had to do the spider to get around in the very beginning. And then once you got to a certain spot, then you could actually like...
Yeah, you have to hit a trampoline
to
get up at some point.
Yeah, it was,
and I don't think that's difficult, but stuff like that's normally what I get stuck on.
Especially when it's in the very beginning, so you have like the least amount of time to solve it.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think this group of levels is probably my favorite in the game. This was like the most fun I had playing this game, simply because of the way I played it. I was kind of playing it like a time trial, I guess. And even with the boss, the fact that he doesn't actively attack you, it didn't bother me because I was still playing that way on the final stage.
Gotcha. Wasn't for me. It was not for me. I didn't dislike it. I liked the boss, but just this was when the game, kind of what Dante was saying, how the game ramps up in difficulty, then it kind of drops back down, and this is the game dropping back down. But I think it did. I want to say one of the levels the one I was alluding to earlier on, where I just like didn't want to solve it and I just looked up the answer. I think that may have been in this chapter. Maybe it's the next chapter, but yeah. And this time when you reach the top, you get confronted by another sheep. It's a sheep with a tie, and you recognize its voice and you place it, and it's Steve. And Steve realizes he's been cursed by New Catherine and tells Vincent they've both been cursed as revenge for their betrayal on their significant others. So Steve cheating on his wife and Vincent cheating on old Catherine. And then they both get interrupted by the shadow of Vincent, which basically picks Steve up and eats him whole, which is like really funny because like he's not funny, but he's squirming and screaming for help. And Vincent's just frozen there, just watching it happen. And then he just basically runs to the door terrified. And as soon as he goes through the door, he wakes up in his apartment, and I think this is the first time, but he's completely alone. There's nobody. New Catherine is nowhere to be found. So he wakes up alone, and that concludes chapter 7. And now we're about to talk about the best chapter in the game, chapter 8.
Time to strap in.
Oh boy. Okay. So chapter 8 starts. You're having lunch with Orlando, and he basically is complaining about his lack of sleep and the nightmares he's been having. Then you find out, you overhear on the TV that a local dentist named Steve Delhomme was found dead. He died in his sleep. Vincent immediately realizes who it is and overhears other diners who happen to be, or apparently were, Steve's neighbors, talking about his situation and how horrible of a man he was for bragging about cheating on his wife with a younger woman. So Vincent and Orlando further discuss the curse, and Vincent's plans to break it off with New Catherine and propose to old Catherine. Then you flash forward to the bar, and it's like, let me see. So you flash forward to the bar, and there's 2 scenes. So one scene is Orlando and Toby, and they're talking, and Toby is apparently lost his virginity to Erica the night before, so he's kind of like bragging about it, and it kind of weirds Orlando out. And he's like, where's Johnny at? Have you seen Johnny? And then it pans over to somewhere else in the bar, and it's Vincent and New Catherine are spending time, and he's explaining to her how he wants to break it off with her, and she seems to take it well. And then she basically becomes, in grade A, crazy, I guess you could say. She basically says, let's keep doing what we're doing, and as long as I'm your number one, then you can have fun with this other girl on the side. I'm cool with it. I'll let it slide. And Vincent's like, no, like, you don't understand. This girl is pregnant. It's my kid, and I intend to marry her. And he's like, it's officially over. And she kind of starts crying and heads off to the bathroom. And Vincent follows her, basically trying to calm her down. And she just does not want to be calmed down. And then she physically assaults this man. She, like, beats his ass. And, like...
Gave him that Chris Brown.
That's kind of messed up. Yeah, she punched him, and like it's fun. Like they do the whole anime thing, so like you see him getting beat at first, but then it pans out of the bathroom, and you're just hearing the sound effects of him getting beat up, and like no, don't, no, not that. Oh, and he's just getting beat up, and when he comes to, she's gone, and Orlando and Johnny are basically like, peace out, man. So then you get to use that time to just kind of catch up with Erica and the boss. And then when you finally head home, it flashes forward to the morning, and you realize, I haven't had a nightmare. Like, I didn't have to do a puzzle sequence. Awesome. And then you turn to your left and realize, oh no, that New Catherine is laying beside me. And then quickly she fizzles out, and you realize, oh, she's a figment of your imagination. And he just talks about like how well rested he feels. So he's just like, oh, I'm gonna ride this out, and I'm gonna lay in bed. And his door buzzes, and he's like, I don't want to get it. It better not be. And then you find out, oh, it's an internet salesman. So he doesn't answer, and he lays back in bed and just closes his eyes to relax. And then his door buzzer goes again, and he's like, who is it? I thought like they're gone. And he hears a key in the door and sits up because he realized it's old Catherine. She's trying to get in. And he basically gets up, and he looks pretty determined to make things right. So he's walking to the door. He opens the door, and then you can see it go from being from behind his shoulder to behind old Catherine's shoulder. And so she's on the other side of the door. He opens the door, and then you see him open the door all the way, and New Catherine is standing behind him with the most evilest of smiles on her face.
And then the Isley Brothers start playing. Oh
man! And so she basically, Vincent does not aware of her at all. And then she just lets out a hello, and then he freaks out because he's like, "Oh my god, she's here! This is it! This is happening!" And Vincent basically realizes this is the worst possible scenario, and new Catherine invites old Catherine in for coffee. And old Catherine is furious, but she's like, "Yeah, that's fine." And then she basically is like, "There better be a good explanation for this." And then there's the most awkward conversation between Vincent and old Catherine and new Catherine. And like, so it's the three of them together. New Catherine is just kind of like, she is not helping the situation because she's being super flirty with Vincent and barely is acknowledging new Catherine or old Catherine's presence beyond like just being a guest. And she is the most extra, and I am so here for it because she has some of the best / most blatantly disrespectful lines I've seen, where she's like, Vincent is trying to explain like, okay, this girl is, she's just here, but like, I'm here for you. And new Catherine is just like, you're not going to break it to her after all you've done to my body night after night? And then like, it starts like, old Catherine starts getting mad about it, but she just keeps prodding her. And she says, if you work hard enough to get something, you'll get it. You believe that, right? Well, he worked me hard, and now he's got me. And, like, she just gets more and more pissed. And then they just start catfighting between the two of them. And they're, like, claiming him as their man and just the most, like, calling each other whores and bitches and all these things. And then Vincent, he just gets so, like he realizes what's going on, and then he just grabs his head and he starts screaming. And I think this is my favorite part in this game. I think this is the moment for, like, I've watched this clip on YouTube like 10 times already. This is my favorite scene of any game we've played so far. This meeting between the two of them.
I didn't know you liked anime.
I love it, apparently.
Starting this podcast.
I love it, man. And like the scene is so good. Like, we're gonna have to like link it or something, dude. Like, it just pans around his head, him screaming. The camera's just going around him, and it does it for like 20 seconds. It's so good. And then like this whole time, like, new Catherine is still jabbing at old Catherine, and I'm so here for it. She's like, careful, you keep making faces like that and you'll start getting wrinkles, you old granny. She says that. And then she was like, why don't you go home, you old whore? Do you even have a baby in that ice cave? And I'm like,
That's so disrespectful.
Bars.
And I was like, oh my god, man down. And it was, oh my god, dude, like, this scene is so good. Like, I just, what do you think, Dante? How do you feel about this scene?
It's really good. Everything you could possibly want out of that climax right there. Like, though you knew it was eventually going to happen, but the fact that they delivered in such a outstanding way, and we haven't even gotten to like the actual climax of that stuff.
It was like the build-up was...
They did it right.
The build-up this entire game, because you're like, okay, we're seeing the rise, or I don't even know if you want to call it the rise. We're seeing the decline of Vincent, and this is rock bottom. And it is so good. It exceeded all my expectations. Vincent is completely helpless. Like,
they just... The way they, like... You can hear them babble, and at some point it just starts to become like that background noise type of babble when he's just screaming. It's so good. He's not even listening to what they're saying anymore, but he's like, my life is over.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And it eventually gets to a point, so like new Catherine, she just gets silent, she stands up, and she just backs to the kitchen counter and reaches for something in the sink.
One moment. Guys, I made a
You
meme.
made a meme.
I made a meme.
Okay.
It's getting posted to the group chat right now.
Okay. Is it a video or like a picture?
It is a picture meme.
Okay.
I saw this meme the other day, and then I decided to add to it.
Hey.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yep. Accurate.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah. So new Catherine realizes what she wants, and she waves this butcher knife that she's been hiding behind her back at that old Catherine was looking for. So then new Catherine attacks her with the knife, and Vincent jumps in the way and gets sliced on his side and falls over, like clutching his side. And old Catherine falls while she's attempting to run away, and her and new Catherine struggle until you hear the shh of like the knife being stuck into somebody, and both of them kind of just stop moving. And Vincent gets up to see what has happened as old Catherine pushes new Catherine off of her, and new Catherine has a knife, the blade sticking out of her stomach. Basically, she's been stabbed, and she's not moving. She's been fatally stabbed, and she's now she's dead. There's a pool of blood forming, and it's just spreading on his carpet. And old Catherine is freaking out. She's like hyperventilating. She takes off her glasses. She's wiping her eyes. She's screaming. She's like crying. And Vincent basically he slaps the mess out of her actually, and just to calm her down. And he basically you go home. I'm gonna clean up this mess. And he kind of grabs her hand and he's pulling her outside. And he opens up the door, and both of them are in the beginning of the tower sequence of a nightmare sequence. Vincent realizes what's happening, and now him and old Catherine must complete the tower together as they're running from a giant demonic version of new Catherine, and she appears with peeled skin and a large mouth with sharp fangs.
This was also a really good transition from a cutscene to gameplay.
Yes. This is the best chapter to me. I beyond just the cutscene, everything about this chapter, I'm here for, and so you have this long, drawn-out climax cutscene to start the chapter. This actual nightmare sequence that you're in, it's unlike any other nightmare sequence. It's a single level. It's a boss encounter. You're encountering Catherine, new Catherine, and you have your escort, you're a companion with old Catherine. So you can. You both have to complete this tower. And so she follows your every moves, but you can command her to wait or follow you. And I did not know you could do that. So I never did that. Did you?
So it wasn't only me.
Okay, cause I watched somebody play through and I was like, how is he telling her to wait and stay? And how does that happen? So I didn't realize you could do that. So the game doesn't do a good job of...
You didn't see the button prompt on the right hand?
I think it's literally on the screen, but you get tunnel vision in that game.
Yeah, I got tunnel vision. So anyways, I didn't hit the button at all. But even despite that, I really, really enjoyed this level. It was a really long level. But like I said, it was a single level, and it was just interesting to try to do it you had to think about your moves in a way that you hadn't had to think about it before. Because you're okay, this character works the same exact way as me, except for they can't move the blocks. So not only do I need to be able to move forward in this, but I have to think about making it so that somebody behind me can also do this. So crumple blocks were out of the question. In some instances, I use crumple blocks. The bomb blocks were kind of out of the way. It really forced you to change how you played in order to let your companion come up with you. And I don't know, I thought this was this game at its best because it's still it has I think it has almost all the blocks at this point. but it was just a really long sequence too instead of it being broken up. So I liked that as well. And it wasn't too difficult, but there was enough of a like this is different than anything we've done up to this point that it felt refreshing. And I really, really dug this chapter, like this entire chapter. And as far as the boss attacks, if either of the characters were close to her, she would do it. She'd punch them, do some punches on them that would insta kill, and then at range she'd fire these lightning bolts that would strike blocks, and they would insta kill if you hit you, and if it hit a regular block, it would turn into a crumple block. So it just was a way to impede your progress further as well. So the boss fight was, I died a couple times. It wasn't necessarily easy, but it wasn't too difficult too. I think a lot of the difficulty came from having another character with you and having to navigate the tower with a secondary person. Did you guys have any? How did you guys like Chapter 8? Like, don't let me gush about it. Did you guys like Chapter 8?
I kind of share some of the same praise you give it, as far as just kind of, I think it's a good point in the story where it hits like all the notes on what you've been waiting for, and then kind of same thing with the actual stage itself. With it's a good transition into the gameplay. It's including a central character, another central character, giving you a little bit of a different way to play it. So I liked it.
What about you, Trevor?
Yeah, I'm glad this didn't, this wasn't the way you had to play throughout the whole game, like with a companion. But it was cool for this stage. Like, it made sense. Like, I liked the way they connected it to the story.
Yeah.
Like, everything in this chapter just sort of really worked together.
I think it was like I'm gonna go to you first, Dante. How do you think about Chapter 8?
Cutscene wise, it was excellent. As far as the puzzle, I thought it was good. I don't know if I'd say it was like my favorite puzzle up until that point. I can't remember if it's the chapter before, the chapter after, where they really start integrating just all the different types of blocks. But I think it's the chapter after.
I mean, technically, they started from, I would say, Chapter 6 on. They start implementing all the blocks, but I remember you specifically saying that you really like how it was implemented in Chapter 9.
Yeah, I think they just have it more free form in Chapter 9, which is kind of what I prefer.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones seem like more puzzle type.
Designs.
Well, I mean, like, structured, yeah, as far as how you solve them. But I did enjoy the actual gameplay part of it, as well as the story beats and kind of how they're linked to one another, and how this one specifically ties into the cutscene you just played out.
Yeah, it was very well done to me. So once you reach the end, Vincent is relieved, and he basically turns around and tells old Catherine to tell her that this is the way back, and we're going to get, wants to get back together, or wants to go back to their life together. And she panics and basically says she can't think about their future anymore. And Vincent claims he doesn't want to cheat, is just confused about their future, and snapped, but now he realized how important she is to him. So this is his moment of growth, apparently, in him basically confessing to her that, yes, I did this thing, but like kind of what Trevor said, like it happens in the movies, like it took me cheating on you to show me how important you are to me, like basically like that. And old Catherine doesn't want to do it anymore, and she attempts to just fall off the tower, but Vincent, unlike what he did with Steve, R.I.P. Steve, he dives to save her, and claiming that he can't lose her. So he really, really is committed to her and his future with her. And that ends Chapter 8. And I just want to say that I think the game goes downhill from here on. And it makes me so sad. I'm so sad. Because I feel like the perfect ending point for me personally would have been them trying to figure out, like maybe leaving it open-ended on if they were going to work it out or not. Like, we could say, like, oh, like, this new Catherine is some crazy demon chick, and, you know, she was seducing me, and I did cheat, but, like, she's done that to a lot of men, and I got caught up, but it showed me how important you are, and now it's on Catherine to kind of make the decision if she wants to stick with him or not. But that's like, you don't get to see that. Like, I just wish the game had been like, okay, he explains to her what happened, and then it's like, it leaves it up in the air if she takes you back or not. But I feel like they don't do that.
You're the first person I've ever heard this, like, you know what this game doesn't need?
An ending.
An ending.
Exactly. Like, the story, the important part of the story to me was the part that was appealing to me was the situation, and like the Vincent being a liar, and the situation of the two women meeting together was the climax, and the resolution or not the resolution, but it was what I was here for, and I was there for the drama. And then I don't really care enough about Vincent as a character to see his growth all the way through. He's not compelling or a strong enough character to me that I care to see that, if that makes any sense.
I still feel like at this point in the game, there's still some unanswered questions. I don't know, maybe
you're right.
Ending it there.
You mean the whole sheep thing and like the nightmare?
But like, dude, like, you're right. Like, ending the game exactly at this point wouldn't have been ideal. But I wish that, like, I didn't need to play any more after this. You know? I feel like
I
reaching...
I think you're saying the love arc was done.
The love arc was done, but like, even the puzzle sequence, like the whole purpose of the puzzle sequence was, and we're gonna talk about it, but the whole purpose was one thing, and that ends after chapter 8. That ends at chapter 8. Like, when they go through the door together, the whole purpose of why these guys have these nightmares, it ends right there, right?
But you don't know the So, Greg, I'm going to have a little aside with you for a second. And I feel like his feelings about this game are how I felt about Persona 4 and how that game ends, if you remember any.
I don't think Greg said he oh, wait, no, 5. It was 5.
No, I did, yeah. I finished it. Yeah, I
can't
remember.
You get the guy, you get the main quote-unquote bad guy, but then it's like, well, what about this whole metaverse thing?
Yeah.
It's like, we gotta go deep. And then that game ends up being like 10 hours longer at that point. So I can kind of relate to him from another Atlas game perspective.
All right, well, I'll keep going until we can unveil this. So Vincent wakes up startled, and old Catherine is asking him, "Are you okay?" Like, she woke him up. And he starts recalling the events between the two Catherines, and she has no idea what he's talking about. Old Catherine came to talk to him and reveals that she knows Vincent has been cheating on her and just wants him to admit it. Vincent, pretty unsure of what is happening, and he's like, "Yeah, like I told you this already," and said, "I thought everything is good now." And old Catherine calls him pathetic and explains that he was writhing around in his sleep and she just now woke him up, which means that the two Catherines meeting, which is the entirety of chapter 8, was all an elaborate dream or nightmare sequence, depending on how you look at it. So none of that happened in real life. It was like that entire part was just a dream. So Vincent goes to old Catherine and he basically promises to treat her and the baby right moving forward. And just as he's about to, like, he's doing the spiel, the wind-up before he goes into starting to propose, she admits, or I don't want to say admits, but reveals that the pregnancy was a mistake and that it wasn't like it was like a false alarm. And she basically breaks up with Vincent. And, like, he rambles on and on about his real intentions and like how he didn't really mean to cheat on her and how he didn't really have any feelings for this other girl and all these things, and is basically asking for her forgiveness. And she's basically fed up with his BS, and she basically explains that while he was going through his thing, like by being distant and claiming that it was his work and claiming that he's been sleeping poorly and all that, he kind of left her on an island. And he basically kind of like, she was super scared about their future because like she thought she was actually pregnant. And here she is like wanting to have a future with this guy that is not in the picture and not there for her, as she's like feeling scared about what's happening to her, like potentially what happened to her body and just like the lifestyle that she has. And she basically is like, yeah, we're through, dude. Dips out on him, and Vincent is just in shock because he was just coming to terms with wanting to spend his life together with her because he had his epiphany, and she does not see a future with him in it. So he's just kind of like really, really bummed out. So how did you guys feel about this this situation? Because I think this is when the game actually kind of drops a lot of the anime-ness and actually gets kind of real. Obviously, it's like a real life situation, I guess you could say. And I thought it was done really, really, really well. And it's like a very, I won't say heavy, but a very mature subject matter that I thought they handled it really, really well. What do you think about it, Greg?
Yeah, I agree that it was a turn I wasn't expecting for it to happen like that, I guess. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense.
Neither was Vincent.
But yeah, it was good to see him have a little bit of remorse about it, I guess, and be like, oh wow, like I really messed up, and this is real, and I've got to deal with the consequences of this.
What about you, Dante?
It's a complicated thing because like I still go back and forth even now. Like I don't know what to think about that kid thing. I really don't. But
could you? What do you mean? What you mean?
Like,
do you think she was lying?
I'm wondering
about
if she was trying to play him, or just like she was being genuine. And it's like, I don't know how kids work, to be honest. So I don't know how much that could be up for grabs, quote unquote. Like,
correct me if I'm wrong.
I always thought it was like a hit detected or hit miss type of thing.
I think you can have a false hit too, if I'm not mistaken. So you can take a test and it come up one thing, and you can take another test and it says something else. So
I feel you. I guess pregnancy tests. I guess they aren't 100%.
Yeah, but I mean, like, even beyond that too. Like she kind of says like, I didn't want to. You weren't even.
She held out.
Well, yeah, but she wasn't even. She says to him something along the lines. I don't have it written out, but it was like, you weren't even excited about the possibility of having a kid or something like that. And he was like, yes, I was. And it was like, no, you were not. And that
See, but that's the other thing. It's like, it's one of those weird gray areas. Like, this was literally one of the questions they asked you as you're climbing up the tower at that point, where it's like, is it still cheating if it's just an imagination? So her getting mad about him dream cheating versus
she doesn't know he's dream cheating.
Him getting mad at her. Huh?
To be fair,
he didn't know it was dream cheating.
He didn't know it was dream cheating. She didn't know it was dream cheating. And she knew it was after a while, she was aware that it wasn't a true pregnancy, but he was not.
Yeah, but like the hypothetical of it all. It's like, well, he wasn't excited about this baby, even though it wasn't really a baby.
That's something that I get what you're saying, but she's also going through a lot, so it's not necessarily something that she's trying to hear and I get it. Like, cause I would.
Yeah, and it's definitely not like an equivalent.
Yeah, it's
either.
like, oh, well, you weren't really
So-
pregnant, so that's why I wasn't happy. And it was just like, no, that doesn't work like that. Either you are or you're not.
Yeah.
But I mean, she even lays it on him too and says something like, I actually have been holding on to this information for a while because I knew if I told you, I would figure you'd leave me.
Wasn't she trying to gauge him?
Yeah, like I think she said something like, if I told you the truth, I figured you would leave me, or something along those lines, because she wasn't sure like what was going on with him, and so like yeah, she was in a like it's interesting because we're seeing this week and from Vincent's point of view, and he's not as engrossed in the baby aspect as her. But like, if you think about it from her point of view, like she's probably like equally as like going through a lot of emotions in a short period of time too. And like, this is the one time that we actually get to like hear about it and see like how she feels. And it was pretty interesting. And I don't know, like I think it fleshes her character out a little bit better for me, and she becomes way more of a sympathetic character, because I feel like a lot of this game kind of paints the women through the eyes of like a guy, or like how guys see ladies. So like she seems very controlling and very like demanding, but then like it kind of fleshes out her character a little bit when you find out like, oh, she was really scared about this, and she was actually worried about how Vincent was going to feel about her. And whereas the whole time it seems like she's the one in charge of the relationship, but like it seems like at this point she is like, oh no, this is like it seems like a 50-50 thing, where from Vincent's point of view the entire time it's been seeming like Catherine's the one in control. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to Debo.
No. You did a good job, like expanding out that argument or conversation.
Trevor, you got any feelings about the epiphany and just the Catherine or old Catherine breaking up with Vincent?
I mean, that played out pretty much how I expected it to, and like you said, it's one of the points in this game where it goes from kind of being wacky to getting a little bit serious.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, I don't have too much more than what y'all said about it.
Well, don't worry, it's about to get back going to wacky. So
it's about to get to anime.
it flashes forward to a pretty depressed Vincent sulking around his neighborhood or his apartment. All his conversations with old Catherine are running through his head. He's walking around town in the rain, like it goes there. And, he's just like, he's super depressed. And he ends up going to work. Huh?
I was just going to say, yeah, it gets really bad. Like, Let It Burn starts playing in the
I
background.
know, dude.
Starts
dancing in the rain.
It's just a bad scene for Tom.
I was thinking that too. I was just like, man, like, what are we doing? Flash forwards to Vincent being at work, and he's in the bathroom with Orlando, killing time like they always do. And he's like talking about his dream and like Catherine and the two Catherines meeting up, and like he's like, I don't know how this happened or whatever, and blah blah blah. And Orlando's trying to cheer him up, but it's not working. And then Vincent is like going through his phone, and he's like looking at his messages, and he's like, all right, let me see what new Catherine said. And then he can't find any pictures or texts or any basically evidence that she's actually existed. What's up, Dante?
You said they're talking as they always do. You failed to mention that they are talking while taking a dump, like on these toilet seats. I was just deeply unnerved and couldn't even concentrate on the actual like sustenance of what's
best
happening.
Use of company time.
Because this is like a worst nightmare scenario.
Oh yeah, the best use of company time is pooping on the clock.
You know, it's one thing if somebody's talking to you while you're peeing. like that bothers me. But if I was taking a dump and somebody's just having some deep like conversation about his ex and cheating and all this stuff, I don't think I'd handle it. I'd pass out on the seat.
I'm gonna stop you right there. Am I the only person in this call, this thing, that has talked to friends while we were both taking dumps?
Oh heck no! Oh, bro,
I definitely haven't done that before.
what are you doing with your life?
As soon as I walk into a bathroom, it's just like I don't want to talk or anything.
Even if like you're peeing, like you're talking to your friend, you don't do that. You never did that.
I don't talk at all.
I might wait outside.
like, okay, so like maybe in like a urinal or whatever, like I might say one thing or whatever, but that doesn't. I don't like doing that. I feel super awkward.
All right, first of all, okay, let me lay it out. You and your friend are walking to the bathroom together. You're already talking. You go into the bath.
No, you're already messing up. You're already messing up. If you're
No, man. You guys go. Like, I mean, you're not like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And he's like, yo, hold up, bro, I'm coming too. Like, not like that. Like,
bro, you going to the calf today? No, I'm going to take a dump.
No. But what I'm saying is, if like you were to go into the bathroom with somebody that you were already having a conversation with them outside of the bathroom, would you just stop talking as soon as you walked into the bathroom? Like, I'm not talking about pooping. I'm talking about like if you were just to go in there and both use the urinal. You guys don't even have to be standing next to each other, or like they could just go in and wash their hands, or you could go and wash your hands and they're using the bathroom. You never had a conversation with somebody?
I mean,
fam, I'm calling an audible. I'm gonna go to the cafeteria or just like divert it. Say, oh, you're going that way? I'm over here.
At that point, I honestly don't plan on being in the bathroom that long. So like a pause in the conversation is nothing.
Okay, well, next time I catch you guys, we're gonna see.
Like we can pick it back up.
He's gonna follow us in there.
Pick it back up when I start washing my hands or something. But
Okay, so there's only two times in my life that I've sat on the toilet and talked to somebody else in the bathroom, and they were also sitting on a toilet. And both times it was friends. And also, we walked into the bathroom having the conversation. And the first time was mostly like...
Pause! I would hope it was a friend. Like, if somebody had the audacity...
I met,
hey, bro, you got some
just a random a rando.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, man, public matchmaking in the toilet.
Okay. So, two things. Not people I know, but people have tried to have conversations with me that I don't know when I was in the bathroom, where they're just like in a stall by themselves, and
that's definitely happened before. I just kind of
ignore them and I don't
keep
say
it
nothing.
moving. It just like I don't want to engage in this at all.
Yeah.
You're a different breed of dude, my dude.
Well,
Anyway, business as usual,
no,
am I right?
I mean, honestly, I didn't think these guys were actually using the toilets when they were in there. I thought they were just kind of hiding out and having a conversation, checking their phones.
Just doing the workplace thing of like, well, I don't have to use the bathroom, but I'm just gonna go, just go in and sit on my phone.
They can't tell you not to use the bathroom.
I'm pretty sure you could see like their pants drop through like the bottom of the stall or whatever. You guys sell that ass? Piping up now. How are you?
Yeah.
Go on with your info dump.
So, like I was saying, like the two times that it's happened in my life, like one time was me and my friend feeling equally sick, and like before a tournament, and talking about how we feel sick while we were being sick. And then the other time was me and my friend walking in. We were like at Fogo de Chao, or like a Brazilian steakhouse, and we had just eaten a lot, and we were talking about the meal we had just, like, while we were walking to the bathroom, like, oh, dude, I don't feel so good. And like, then we just continued our conversation on the toilet. But in that situation, we both remarked how weird it was, but how okay it was. Just like, I don't normally do this, but you're the homie, so I don't feel uncomfortable doing this. and I'm talking about pooping. Just talking about pooping. But I'm with Trevor. I don't think when they do this, it's because this wasn't the first time that they were in the bathroom having a conversation in stalls. There was at least one other, because I rewatched all the cutscenes while I was doing up the show notes. So there's at least one other time, and I think they make reference to the fact that they're pooping because he's talking about toilet paper or like needing toilet paper or whatever.
You know what? Yeah, that's even, unless there's like super trying to sell it. There's literally like, yo, I need some toilet paper.
Yeah, but like it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time that this happened. So I'm surprised that it caught you off guard. But I guess because they were talking about toilet paper. But I digress. Let's get back into this.
You're right. You caught me with my pants down.
Yeah, I didn't mean to stall you. That was bad. That was bad. So Vincent realizes that he no longer has text or photos of new Catherine, and Orlando's like, well, maybe she deleted them, or maybe old Catherine deleted them. And then he's like, come to think of it, nobody has seen her, so what, and then Vincent's like, wait, you didn't see her the night before, or you didn't see this? And he's like, nah, dude, I just saw you. So Vincent starts wondering, and he starts driving himself crazy. And then it flash forwards to when they're at the bar, and he starts asking everybody, his friends at the bar, like, do you remember the girl I was with the other day? And everybody's like, no, like, I didn't see any girl. I just saw you being by yourself. And Vincent starts to melt down. And Trevor, can you take it from here?
So, Vincent's basically having this meltdown because he's the only one that seems to think Catherine exists. And then he starts, I guess, backtracking in his mind, like, man, who was here when Catherine was here? And he looks over at the bar, and who else but the man, the myth, the legend, Boss. And so...
Oh, sorry. There's one thing that happens before then that I wanted to see that if you guys caught or not. I'm pretty sure this is before here, so let me make sure. This was like right after they talked about everybody having the dream. Like Toby had the dream, Orlando had the dream.
I don't think Toby had the dream.
Who's the other dude?
It's just Orlando and Johnny, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't think Toby was...
No, everybody had even Erica had the dream.
No, I think it's what the thing was that Toby said, I didn't have the dream, but Erica's been complaining about not getting sleep, and she blushes, and Orlando and Johnny kind of react a certain way and try to change the subject, which I think is the reveal that I was referring to earlier. I think Johnny...
No, oh my God, you read this wrong.
What?
So I'm about to drop this bomb on you.
Wait, you're not going to the ending, are you? Oh, okay.
No, this isn't the ending. This is... So, what if I told you that Erica was
that
transgender?
Is the ending.
Wait, how is that?
That's
revealed
a
in the
specific ending. That's a specific ending, but I didn't know that was like canon throughout the entire game.
Yeah, that's why like only men have the dream. So,
oh wow,
like that's why.
I didn't even,
Yeah,
what?
and that's why Orlando always acts really funny when, what's his name, Toby, is like, yeah, I'm trying to hook up with Erica.
Okay. So
there you go.
So I thought when Johnny said he cheated, or he betrayed his best friend, he's still referring to Toby, right? Johnny got with Erica, or is it, or is Johnny? Did Johnny actually get with Orlando's wife then?
I'm not sure about any of that. I think Erica was just blushing about having the dream because, like, it kind of lifted the veil a little bit on her.
I did not know that only women or men could get the dream. So I was thinking it was cheaters just in general. So that's why I was thinking like, oh, this basically confirms that Johnny got with Erica behind Toby's back.
I'm pretty sure they established early on that only men get the dream.
Yeah, I
Okay.
remember them saying that. Or at least, like, on the news, they were saying, like, it was only men that were dying.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, carry on, Trevor.
All right, so back to
Whoa.
Vincent.
So I
Oh,
was
you
gonna
finally
say,
saw the-
was it really immature that I thought that was funny? But maybe
Y'all
not.
finally saw it.
I just to describe it to the listeners.
We'll describe it when we start talking about the endings.
We need show notes.
Yeah. Basically, we
I'm
just
muting
posted
myself. I'm muting myself.
we posted a screenshot of one of the endings for the game, which ties into what we were just discussing. But we'll bring it back up later. So at this point in the game, you know Vincent's doing some detective work, and he realizes Boss was there at the time that Catherine showed up, and he remembers that either Boss says something to Catherine or Catherine says something to Boss, but they kind of acknowledge each other's presence, and so that's when he realizes that Boss can see her, and so Vincent goes over and confronts Boss about it, and then eventually, Boss admits to being able to see Catherine. I can't remember the full extent of the conversation, but then after that, he goes into how he's actually the one who constructed the tower and is responsible for choosing who goes into the nightmare. And of course, based on him being a bartender, of course, he has like access to everybody's dirty laundry, and he uses that to be able to vet them and put them into the nightmares. And then it just gets weirder, where he's some type of
It's funny
interdimensional.
because it's funny because he's like, "Oh, you figured me out," and then he goes and does his like weird exposition thing about like I'm the mastermind. He's like, "No, bro, I was just asking you a question."
Yeah, and Vincent is kind of like, okay, yeah, I knew something was off, but then when he keeps on going, Vincent's kind of like, wait, what? Like, I didn't ask for all this. But yeah, Boss was just like, he's from another dimension, and he hired Catherine or something like that to go into these men's lives and bring them into the nightmare. Trying to think of what else.
As far as my notes that I had, it was like, so his name is Thomas Mutton. He was a human and he became a god, and he basically, Catherine is a succubus and always takes the form of an ideal woman of the person that she is trying to seduce. And then as far as the boss, he's tasked with making sure the human population keeps growing. So he inputs or 6 Catherine on guys that are with women that there is no future with them as a couple. So he basically breaks couples up that will not work. It kind of made me think of that Black Mirror episode from the new season, or most recent season, with online dating, where everybody dated and they had an expiration date on their relationship, and you don't get to choose who you were in a relationship with. You just kind of got matched up. And so you could be matched up and dating somebody for 7 days or 7 years or 7 weeks or whatever, and then once you found the one, then you were outside of this simulation once you were with the person that you were meant to be with. and it's kind of like the same situation, maybe in a little reverse, where he's like purposely breaking up, introducing this agent of chaos and Catherine the succubus to basically come in between this couple to try to break them up, so then that way they don't have because they're not, I don't know, it's like it's really weird.
It was like he was trying to take away or break apart people, like when one of them wasn't ready for commitment, so that would free up the one who was ready for a commitment, and then they would find somebody else who was ready for a commitment, and that was his way of like controlling the population or something like that.
It's weird because like you can definitely have a kid with somebody that you're not supposed to be with. So like his whole intention of making sure the human population keeps growing, like, bro, you're not needed for that. Like, people are gonna have kids, like, no, you know, like with the right person or with the wrong person. So it doesn't really matter.
I think the culture in Japan's different though. Like, I'm not gonna do one of those cultural expert things.
Like Trevor.
Yes, exactly like Trevor. But I don't know where I got it from, but I think it's just not as common over there. And, like, a lot of, like, okay, it's not about, like, having a kid with somebody else. It's just having a kid in general is very, like, not rare over there, but it's not something everybody goes into. And there's actually, like, a big population decrease that they're worried about, and a lot of people actively don't want to have kids, from my understanding. So I guess his theory is like, hey, if I can get people in relationships, at least they might try to have a kid.
Gotcha. All right, it's back on you, Trevor.
Let me see what happens after the big reveal. I think that's when Erica kind of stumbles into the conversation, because like the bar is closed at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the last of the patrons have left.
And I think it's just like Erica there, and she kind of stumbles into the conversation. What else happens after that?
Does he take you to the Shadow Realm at this point?
Well, I think Vincent is kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna, defeat the final boss or something like that, and then...
Yeah, he makes a gambit with the dude. He's like, yo, you end these dreams, or you kill me, or something like that. Or die
I thought
trying.
it was he wanted to talk to Catherine one more time.
I think that was the terms of him, like, if he made it through the last day, then I want to talk to Catherine.
But I thought he also was playing for everybody, and like, hey, if I win,
no more,
the nightmare ends
for everybody.
Or whatever.
So he was trying to be like, everybody looked up to him, and he was like an influential figure in his community, and he decided instead of taking the easy route, he would do right for everybody instead of just like few percent of the population.
And it was also kind of like, the fact that he figured out that new Catherine wasn't real, and he basically broke up what he had going on with old Catherine. And so that kind of instilled him to be like, oh man, you messed up everything that I had. I had a good thing going. And then you had to intervene. And so that kind of inspired him to take the challenge.
I think from there it goes into the nightmare, right? Or like he goes home and it's nightmare time?
I'm pretty sure, like, he challenges the dude, and I think the dude just transports him or whatever.
Yeah. And I think this is, like... I don't think they introduce anything new to this stage, or to Chapter 9. Like, all the landings are empty. There's no sheep to talk to. And I think this is the most lengthy... I think there's 6 parts in this... Oh, wait. Yep, you're right. They introduced a dark... a vortex block, or a dark hole block, which is like a block that you can't stand on, and anything that lands in it or on it, it gets sucked into this dark hole. So that's the thing that they add. And I think there's you end up facing him, and he has 2 forms. So his first form is him as just Thomas Mutton, aka the boss, just in his normal white tux with the red glowing eyes, and then go ahead, Trevor. You can go ahead with that then.
Okay, so like at the landings, like you said, Marcus, there aren't any sheep or anything, so you can basically make a beeline for the confessional booth, and that's where the mysterious voice gives you his real name, and his name is Astaroth, and what was his role?
This is like trying to find your true intentions or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. This is where it got real anime.
And that's why I think this is why I'm like not here for it. Because I was just like, man, why do we have to like introduce this stuff last minute to try to wrap this up? Like, I don't know. I'd rather not know than it to be wrapped up the way it was wrapped up. This story, personally. But I don't know. I forgot what Astaroth's role is. What was it? I think it was just mostly just to know your true intentions and just try to get like a better read on you as a person, which is really weird because like it's completely outside of the game. So it's like it's Vincent is acting one way. You are responding for him or through him in text messages, and despite anything that you say, he's always going to act a specific way. So you can act super faithful to old Catherine in your text messages, but Vincent is always going to go for new Catherine every time. So the same thing happens with this confessional booths. They could ask you a question that like, I mean, they randomize the questions they ask you, but they could ask you a question that like almost 100% pertains to what has just unfolded in the story, but you answer it as the player, and it just seems like a really like it kind of broke down this whole confessional and just the whole conversation aspect of this game. It kind of just like ripped that facade away of like what the purpose of that was in the game. Because like going into the game, I was like, this is cool. This is like, I mean, it's not like Mass Effect, but it's just kind of like a cool like lightness, darkness, Paragon Renegade, Chaos Law. Like it's like a cool concept in this game. But then once you have the reveal of Astaroth, I feel like it just kind of just like, oh, well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it doesn't even affect your meter anymore. Like the questions that he's asking once you get to chapter 9.
Yeah, I
was curious about that.
The reason why is depending how you answer in chapter 9 determines the ending of the game you get. So everything that you've done up till then, doesn't matter, which is very frustrating because it's like you were saying, Trevor, you were like.
But you never know unless you.
You're right. You never know, but it is frustrating once you find that out. Because, like you were saying, Trevor, like you were playing towards a renegade, or what? Right? Is what you were saying. But I think I'm gonna pull it up just so I can be 100% sure.
Because my meter was all the way in the red.
I think it's like depending on what you answer for. There's 8 different endings. And it's depending on what you answer at stage 9.2 and 9.3 will determine your fate. So the answer given in stage 9.1 doesn't matter, but 9.2, 9.3, and 9.4 do. And that's how the game is. The ending of the game is determined. Nothing up to that point. So up to that point, it's just for show, and it's just like it's like a.
But it worked.
But it's an extra meter that, like, I don't know. It's like giving you information that's irrelevant, that doesn't matter.
But it does matter because you think it matters, and you play based off of that meter. the fact that it doesn't do anything isn't important. It's the fact that it makes you feel like you're doing something.
Yeah, I guess it's just there to add more weight to the decisions that you.
But I mean, like, so are you saying that somebody like Trevor was always going to pick negatively because he wanted to see the meter go down and not because he just wanted to see what the game ending would be?
So, yeah, in that case, he's trying to play the game when in reality the game's playing him.
But then, like, so for like me, I just picked whatever I felt like was a response I would give, and I kind of chose it regardless of what the meter was displaying. And I feel like you played that way too, didn't you?
Yeah, but I thought it mattered.
Okay.
And the fact that I thought it mattered and I was watching the meter made it a very interesting thing to watch.
So
over time,
I thought it mattered.
Regardless of whether it had an effect or not.
I thought it mattered, but I also wasn't like trying to course correct to make sure I got what I wanted. For me, I was going to be satisfied with wherever it ended up. Because that was going to be my canon playthrough, I guess you could say. But then to find out that the end of the because I mean, like, the thing is that the most frustrating part is that all the confessional questions are random. So, like, ultimately, it's random what your ending you get is, versus when you're playing throughout the entire game, you're always going to be put in this scenario where you can act positively or negatively. So you're always going to have the same scenarios play out. And I feel like that's a better read of, like, good versus bad versus 3 random questions.
Okay, guys. It's time for corrections. The meter apparently does affect your ending. So, like,
How so?
depending on where it is, you have to choose the answer to certain questions. And that gives you, like, so say your meter is in the blue. If you answer yes to the questions and you get one ending, you'll get a different ending if your meter is in the red and you answer yes to those same questions.
Okay, so essentially you have red 1 through 4 and then blue 1 through 4. Okay.
That makes me feel better. It does.
They gamified
No, it makes me feel better that everything leading up to Chapter 9 was important versus it just being like only Chapter 9 was important. That's what I mean. Okay. I'm okay with that. Alright. Back to...
It's another take on player choice, essentially. And, like, how much control does the player actually have versus how can the game not subvert your expectations, but kind of, it's another mechanic to toy with the player.
Yeah.
To some regard. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to this boss and wrap this up. So you fight Thomas Mutton, aka the boss, and this first form he has 3 attacks. He's sitting in a chair, and he simply just aims his gun across the blocks and locks onto Vincent, and he shoots at Vincent, and if it hits him, he dies, but if it misses, then it destroys the block that Vincent was standing by. The second is he quickly moves in front of the stage and boot stomps the front of the tower, and it will knock him down and stun him, or if he's hanging off the side, and he gets hit, he'll die. And the final is he does like this gavel strike, and any and all of the special blocks will turn into another type. So it's frustrating, to say the least. This boss took a lot longer for me to beat because of like how random it was, where like you could go from having like all trap blocks to all crumble blocks, or all trap blocks to all bombs, or it could be there was few instances where it was beneficial, where like, oh, I got a whole bunch of spring blocks, but most of the time it was like detrimental to like have this happen. So it and it's random, so it was kind of frustrating because it was like not something you could control, and so sometimes it was just kind of like matter of life or death. If I get this type of block, then I'm not going to be able to proceed and I'm going to fall, and that happened a couple times for me. How about you guys?
Yeah, this level was super frustrating for me. I probably used about 15 retries.
Yep, I was about the
I
same.
definitely use more
I
than
was about
that.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah. When I started, I had, I think, 70 retries. And then I ended it with like 50 something. But yeah, this was one of those levels, like on the boss levels, like Marcus was saying earlier. If you hit back after a boss uses his attack or hit undo, um, this boss will actually initiate an attack. I think he does his kick, like every time you undo. No, it was something like that. Like
He might start an attack soon, but I don't think it's specifically the kick.
it
Always.
seemed like it because every time I would hit back or undo, it would start up his kick attack. Or maybe it was just specific to my game.
Glitch.
So, all of you, are we just talking about phase one?
Phase
of this
one,
fight right
phase
now, or are we
one.
talking about- So, no, that was literally the easiest stage in the game for me.
Hold up.
Well, it,
No, I'm dead serious. Like, I didn't die. That was where I got the full combo throughout the entire stage.
hey, well, he had
Don't know how
issues
to-
on chapter 6, and you didn't, Trevor. So
Yeah, like, this was what I was talking about, where this is probably my favorite part of the game, where they just literally throw blocks at you, and pretty much it's just free-form puzzle solving, so you kind of get to use every technique at this point. And, yeah, I was just destroying that dude. At least in phase one. It's rough.
oh, you know what? Like, I was reading about his stage 2. Are we good with the stage 1? Like, all of us had issues except for Dante? Okay, cool.
Oh,
There was-
I was gonna ask y'all since we got to this one because this is where it happened to me. But did any of y'all happen to grab a checkpoint like at a really bad spot? Like maybe you crumbled the wrong blocks, and right after it happened, you hit a checkpoint, and then
I think
you kept dying.
the one for me, it wasn't a crumble, but it was like I went from standing on a bomb block to the checkpoint. So every time I restarted after I died, the bomb block started. The fuse started, so I had to quickly get out of the area to avoid having to deal with crumble blocks.
Yeah, that was part of my issue with this level was that I got into a bad checkpoint, and then I eventually just started from the beginning because I was like, it's pointless.
I was gonna say one other thing that I forgot they introduced to the puzzle was the monster blocks, the purple blocks that move, and so the second form is a more demonic version. It's his true form, his god form. It's the Doomazid, I think is what it's called, and it's the disembodied floating head of Thomas Mutton, and he's like the color of ash, his white eyes glowing red, and then there's like hundreds of sheeps that are interlocking to like form like a growth along the side of his face, and yeah, it's like a really freaky looking version of this dude, and he has 3 attacks this version as well. He shoots a laser beam that destroys all blocks that are marked in red. He has one that curses Vincent, so his eyes will go purple, and when there's a purple cloud over Vincent's head, all the special blocks around him begin to change. So this is another one of those ones that changes blocks. And then his final one is like a meteor that comes crashing down on the tower, and each block will glow red before it's struck. And it basically, if you get hit by the meteor, you die. And any block that gets hit by the meteors, they'll turn into crack blocks. And I actually, besides the only difficulty I had with him as a boss in either form was the changing of the blocks. It was so like random, like whether it's such a hard swing between like being beneficial or just being like completely like screwing you over, that was the thing that was holding me back, and not necessarily like avoiding his attacks.
That usually helped me out.
I mean, my runs that I
if it went bad, you can just hit back.
see, and I didn't know that, so like I knew after playing this game and after like reading about it, as I was like, oh, like if I would have used this back button more, I would have had a little bit of easier time in these specific example or instances. But like I said, I went back so rarely that I was pretty locked in. I guess I was playing the true Japanese way because I'm such an anime fan.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with the second form aside from like the last little stint where the fireballs were raining down, and there was just so many times where I was like on the second to last staircase or the last staircase, and I just randomly get hit by a fireball, get sent back.
Okay.
I can't remember if there was even like a good indicator to show you where the fireballs were.
That's
it was
what
really
I was feeling
quick,
like.
but the block that you were, or the block that it was going to hit would turn red. But it was a lot faster than some of the other attacks that the bosses would do.
Gotcha. You guys got anything you need to add for this boss, or did you like it? Because I didn't really care. I mean, like,
See, like this boss was probably my favorite boss in the game. Just, I felt like I was in full sprint mode. Like what Trevor describes how he felt during the first, I don't know, 3/4 of this game, is what I felt in like the last quarter. So I just really, really enjoyed just quickly, actively solving all these puzzles, never stopping, and just kind of using everything the game had taught me up until that point, and like pretty much making the puzzle my own instead of the puzzle making me.
that's interesting because, like, really for me, I feel like the only two hiccups I had in this game, like puzzle-wise, where I felt like the puzzles were like not difficult, but like I was getting caught at, was chapter 6 and 7. Other than that, I feel like it was pretty much a sprint for me as well. But I come out on the other side of chapter 9, and I'm like, I could have done without it. But I think that mostly might be because my attitude about the story and how the game, what happens in chapter 9, and then how the game ends. Where I'm just like, that kind of soured my feelings on this game personally. What about you, Trevor?
It didn't frustrate me as much as phase 1 of this boss, but I didn't mind it. Like, I knew I was getting to the end of the game, which, you know, kind of motivated me to, you know, push through this, and at some points I just had to tell myself to slow down in order to get over stuff. But yeah, like Dante said, just it allows you to utilize everything that you've learned throughout the game. And I don't know if this is the first time. Well, no, I remember getting one in the beginning of the game. But the little gold idol that you pick up that you can use to transform trap blocks or any special blocks into regular blocks. I don't think I had ever used one of those up until this level.
They kind of have that spot where they require
yeah,
you
this
to use
one
it, right?
you have to use it.
I thought that was kind of a cool thing. Like, hey, we're going to actually make you use one of these, like, what had been before an optional item, and actually implement it and integrate it into the puzzle itself.
Did y'all end up buying any items from the shopkeeper?
I think I did a couple times. I want to say one of them was the item that changes the blocks around to normal blocks, and then I think I bought an extra block at one point.
Nah, I didn't buy a single item.
No, just because, like, I knew it would make me mad buying the item and then me, like, picking up something else along the way and dropping that item, and then getting to another part in that same level where it's like, God dang it, I wish I had that original item.
Yep, that's kind of how I felt.
Because you can only hold one thing at once.
That's kind of how I felt. So I was like, I don't know.
There was definitely times where I wish you could hit start and like go to an option screen to buy an item.
The game is pretty generous, or at least on normal difficulty. It seems pretty generous about giving you items to use.
But buying items is really, really expensive also. like the times I thought about doing it, it's like, man, I barely have enough credits to do this, and I'm like a couple chapters into the game.
Gotcha. And like, so after you beat the boss, you wind up back in his bar. He's heavily bandaged, his glasses are broken, and he's going to fulfill your request. And this is where the endings play out. And so there are 8 possible endings. Which ending did you get, Dante?
So in my ending, Catherine with the K and Vincent, like, I can't remember where they meet exactly. I think they meet at the bar, and a couple of their friends are around, and they're just kind of talking about their life up until that point and how crazy everything's been. But then Vincent's like, hey, we've got through this. I didn't actually cheat on you. I want to marry you. And do you accept? And Catherine's more or less like, I need some time, but I'm going to think about it. And then you, like, fast forward a couple weeks, I guess, and she's picking out her wedding dress. And essentially it's foreshadowed that they're going to get married, at least in the ending that I got.
Okay. So for me, I took the boss up on his took the boss up and had him bring new Catherine to the bar. And
Yeah.
you're talking to her and you're like, I finally decided what I want to do. I want to marry you. And so you ask new Catherine to marry you. And she's like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, the blah, blah, this. And then she's like, thinks about it. And she's like, sure. And her dad comes from the demon king from the demon world. And you meet her dad. And he's like this huge, like, it's very similar to Dragon Ball Z. Was it Chi-Chi and her dad, the Ox King? Is that right? It's very much like that, where she's like this small, petite succubus, I guess, and her dad is this huge demonic creature. And yeah, so we live happily ever after in my apartment in the demon world. But it's so freaking weird because she mounts you because it's about to go down, and then the boss is laying right next to you in sheet pajamas, and he's like, don't mind me. And then she says, shh, it's better when people are watching. And then it pans out of the apartment window and you see you're in the demon world. It's weird. It's really weird. And that's what you got, Trevor?
It's
you got
anime.
that ending too?
Yeah. Did you tell him about the part where he goes to the demon world?
What you mean?
He said it.
Yeah.
No, like where he's like in the demon world.
Are you talking about?
I think it said like it was weeks later, like after that happened, because it jumps forward in time.
And then what happens?
So him and Newt Catherine are like in the demon world. He's got like these long demon horns on him now.
Oh, see, I didn't get that in.
And then he's got like these other demon girls like all over him, like while he's just sitting there laying with Catherine. And I guess she doesn't mind that all these little demon girls are just swooning over him.
Getting it in with Vincent.
And
she's a succubus.
And like apparently he's like the new king of the demon world now.
Yep.
And then it kind of pans out and they're basically on top of New Catherine's dad. And he's in like this awkward position, like he just
he's like
witnessed,
hunched over, right?
Yeah, like he just witnessed his daughter having demon sex with another demon or something. Yeah, it was.
That was your ending?
Yeah.
See, I didn't get that.
Okay, so I guess
that's the true. You got the true ending, and I got the good one.
Okay, maybe that was my prize for getting all red.
All right. What about you, Greg? What ending you get?
So I got the ending where he's back at the bar and he decides that he's cool with not being in a relationship, and he decides to ask for a loan from boss, and he was going to use this to go into space. He asked for $50,000, and he actually is like, well, I
Did you
just
just
give
say
Yes.
space?
yes. And so he's like, well, let me, so deal's a deal, right? So he's like, can I get $50,000? And he's like, no, I can't do that. I can give you 500. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to use that to bet on a wrestling match. And he's like,
This
yeah.
seems amazing.
And he's like, yeah, and then I'm going to go all in. So he's like, you're just going to spend all the money right now? He's like, yeah. And then I'm going to win it and then come back here and buy some more drinks. And then that's how it ends.
Okay, so okay here.
That sounds better than even
Yeah.
chapter 8. Oh
Okay,
my-
so here are the different endings. So there's 3 Catherine old Catherine endings. So the good one is Vincent convinces, basically what Dante. This is the one that Dante had. So Vincent basically convinces Catherine that it was all an illusion and he didn't actually cheat with new Catherine. And then his boys show up to kind of back up what he says. And then they get back together and get married. Well, did you see the part with... No, that's not what Dante had. They just get back together.
Yeah, mine was alluding to them getting married. Very
Okay, well, this one just says they get back together. The bad Catherine one...
Oh, well. Never mind. Go ahead.
The bad Catherine one, old Catherine doesn't believe Vincent that it's illusion, and she leaves him. And then the true Catherine ending is the same as the good one, but there's a bonus marriage scene, and in this scene it's implied that Erica is actually a male, and Orlando gets back with his wife. So did you have that part, Dante? Okay, then
No.
you just had the good ending. Okay, so then the true ending, you get to actually see the marriage. And so that screenshot that
Gotcha.
Trevor shared us with Erica and with Toby was a screenshot from the true Catherine ending, new Catherine and old Catherine ending. Sorry. Okay, so then the 3 new Catherine endings. The one I got was Vincent acts confident, gets Catherine to marry him, and they live together in the demon world. The bad one is Vincent asks new Catherine to marry him, and she refuses. And then the true ending, the one Trevor got, is same as the good, but with a bonus scene where Vincent is the new king of the demon world. So that's the one Trevor got. And then there are 2 freedom endings, which are like the neutral ones. So the normal one is Vincent gives up on both women, takes a loan out from the boss, and he bets it all on the wrestling match and wins. And then
Secret
the
best.
the true ending is the one Greg got, which is the same as normal, but with a bonus scene where Vincent takes his winning and moves to the moon. Which when I read these, I was like, I was not happy with the reason I wasn't happy with the ending is because I felt like my character's preference or like what I was saying was mostly go to old Catherine, but I ended up with new Catherine, and I was like, what the heck is going, like, how did this happen? Like, I don't know, I didn't necessarily feel like I had that much control in that, because I felt like a lot of the speech and stuff I was doing was towards old Catherine, but it didn't end up that way. But after reading these, I think really the only real endings are the ones where Erica is actually a male, and the one that Greg got. Those are my 2 favorites. And
yeah,
I think
when I was
that
watching
is
the
it for-
one where Vincent like moves to space, that ending where he just like kind of turns around and looks at the camera like, yeah, I did that.
You might be asking, how did I get in this situation? Yeah.
Your title card.
See, do you guys have anything else that we need to... This was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought this would be a shorter episode. Any other Catherine?
So, Marcus, what anime do you plan on watching next?
Something with...
Did you put any anime on the next list?
Actually, I have 2 lists, and one of them is all anime. But I made that list before I finished this game. So
And now you made a third list with even
no,
more.
no. I have two lists, and one of them is all anime, and I'm really like, I don't know. There's stuff from both lists that I want to play, so I could combine them, but I don't know if I want to.
I kind of wish we had time to actually do the Persona game because I think you would like it, to be honest.
Bro,
We could just say we did, and
You would
we could
really
just
be
play
able
Mass
to do it.
Effect.
I'm telling you, I think you would really like Persona 5.
Specifically 5 of the 3.
4 and 5
Okay.
are both really good.
Like
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I'm
Cut from the same
very,
cloth.
very, very intrigued. But I also don't have, like, I have.
Don't even say you don't have time. I know what your FTL game count is
Hey
like.
man, I've been playing Cook Serve Delicious, and I hate that game, but I'm gonna finish it.
What if I told you there's a man that pretty much exclusively speaks about curry all the time in Persona 5 in very intricate ways?
Okay.
There's some good food stuff there.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that game after playing this. So I think I might have to check out some more anime games. I don't know about watching anime, but I would probably check out some more like anime games, maybe.
I got one for you.
Okay,
You ever
Trevor, what are you
ever
watching?
heard of Asura's Wrath?
I've heard of it. I played it.
So it's got some bonus episodes that
I played them.
that are all anime.
They're Street Fighter.
Trevor, so what animes are you watching
Oh, what
right
anime
now?
am I watching? Let me see. I'm
Yeah.
caught up on My Hero Academia. I've been.
Oh, this is the question. This is the Dante end of the episode question.
Is this the waypoint?
It can be. He asked you, but then
Nah,
I
you
flipped
This is
it.
the waypoint. I haven't watched too much anime like in the past couple of years.
You're an adult.
See, I thought I was, but then I started My Hero, and that stuff is
Yeah.
really, really good. So,
I
my
might
current
start
kick.
watching Tokyo Ghoul soon.
Greg, you anime?
Not really. I mean, I've watched it in the past, but like I just kind of fall out of it, man. Like I think the last thing, and this kind of shows you the last thing I watched was like One Punch Man, and then I stopped around like episode 13 because it was just kind of like, all right, this is pretty one note at this point. So I think I'm good.
You know, that might be the anime for Marcus, though. Like, just something that I don't know. I can't tell if he'd be like the comedy type of anime dude, or like the half serious, like kind of like this game type of anime.
I
You
just
might
don't
like Yu
want,
Yu
like-
Or maybe
Hakusho.
both.
I think the stuff that I would be most intrigued by is, I think mech stuff. I think I would like mech. Yeah, I think I would like a lot of mech stuff, and I think that I would like. I like the concept of the sports stuff. So like the boxing one, and one about
Hajime
yeah,
no
Fighting
Ippo.
Spirit. I didn't know the Japanese name, and then just things that aren't over the top. I want the not necessarily realistic, but not like super like this dude's powering up and he can fly and like not the yeah, not
planets.
that. And I'm not trying to disparage Dragon Ball Z because I tried to watch it and it's fine. It's like, excuse me, hold up. It's fine. You know, I tried to do it in my best Trevor, but I couldn't. But like,
It's all right.
can you do it for me, Trevor?
It's fine.
Yeah, but it just wasn't for me. So like, I would say I have watched some anime. I like Afro Samurai. I like that. The Street Fighter anime is silly, but I just like it because it's characters I know.
Oh, so you know what game we need to play next then?
Heck no.
If you even try,
If you pick that game, Trevor, I won't be mad. It'll be funny though. All right. Well, are we good?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well.
let's check the email.
Oh yeah,
JK.
yeah. Check the emails. You got any emails, Greg?
I'm gonna say that's a negative. But if you guys want to get involved with the show or give us feedback or anything, always.
If you want to recommend anime to Marcus,
there we
feel
go.
free.
So you guys can drop all your anime recommendations in there. You know what I'm saying? I'll make sure he gets them.
Actually, just post it to his Facebook wall.
That's even better.
I actually don't care if you post anime to my Facebook page. Don't bother me.
But yeah, you guys can hit us up at misscheckpoints@gmail.com. And yeah.
And where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere. On Twitter at Boombox Hero. Facebook is the same, Boombox Hero. And on Twitch at twitch.tv/xdrdmagnegrox.
What about you? Where can people find you, Dante?
People can find me streaming at twitch.tv/awakencloud. I've been pretty regular as of late, so I guess I'll be streaming our next game, Butcher Bay, most likely, and Spider-Man when that comes out. So yeah, just...
And what about you, Trevor? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitch at Lyric Unsung. I'll most likely be streaming the new episode, or the first episode of The Walking Dead final season, episode 1. Might do that this weekend.
That's the third one, right?
No, this is the fourth. Season 1, Season 2, New Frontier.
Kind of.
Yeah, Michonne was
four-
like a spinoff. But this is like the 4th season in the Clementine story.
Okay. And you can find me probably playing Cook Serve Delicious on Steam. I'm trying to Cook Serve Delicious 2. I already beat the first one. The second one sucks, but in comparison, but I have to finish it. I started it, so I have to finish it. So I'm trying to finish that game. I'll probably finish it at 100 hours, so I got like 75 more to go.
100 hours in like human
Yeah,
time?
or 100 hours in Steam time.
What?
Yeah, dude.
You started like 2 weeks ago.
I know, I got 25 hours in right now.
Okay, so you still have 75 to go.
Probably. That's what I'm
Wow.
predicting it will take me to.
Is that how long the
The
first
first
one
one took 25 hours. I've already. I completed the first one and did everything that I could do in 25, or got all the highest ranked restaurant in 25 hours.
But Cook Serve Delicious 2 takes about
That's what
100
I'm
hours,
thinking
you're
it's going
saying.
to take me. Yeah. And it's not even better, and that's the most frustrating part. Okay, that's disappointing. Well, I guess, do we have anything else that we need to say about Catherine? Anybody? Nobody?
Long live
Long
anime.
live anime. I'm not gonna lie. If we were to, this game is one of my favorite games we played. I think it would. We made our own personal list before we played this game, or I guess when we were halfway through Ninja Gaiden, and I think this would be in my top 5, which is surprising. I would not have thought that going into this.
It's higher up than I expected it to be for me.
That's good. And yeah, Greg, are you happy you got to see the game through, or you still feel the same way? You're like, I didn't need to have played it.
I mean, it's nice to finally have closure in that I've finished the game. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I liked it, but I was definitely starting to get fatigued towards the end. So.
Gotcha. Well, and Trevor, this was that Scream though, right?
Yeah, this game had those scenes, those angles.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Wait. So, we know Catherine Full Body is coming out. What do you guys feel about the prospect of a third Catherine love interest?
tight. I don't know how they'd spell her name. Would they just call it Kathy for short?
Maybe.
Caitlin?
Slice.
Catherine, and Caitlin?
Well, see, you could do it with a Y instead of
No.
an R, right?
This Catherine could be
Maybe.
black.
Apparently, the new Catherine is just called Rin.
I don't know how I feel about
All
that.
right.
Okay, maybe it's I don't know. I is it like a completely new game, or is it just a remaster with some more content? Right?
See, just quickly off the Wikipedia page, there's a third girl named Rin, who's the pianist at the Stray Sheep. Rin's involvement in the story will cause a split between Catherine and Catherine. There will be new sexy
Oh
events,
yeah.
episodes, and animated cutscenes to further develop the characters of Catherine and Rin. Let's see, there will be new endings and additional endings for the old, last year's model. A wide level of difficulty options is also available alongside other adjustments, new gimmicks and modes, and there's also an original mode enabling the option to play the unaltered stages from the first. So, yeah, seems like they're doing a lot of stuff to the new full body edition.
I'm not sad that we played what we played. So yeah. Well, I guess if that's gonna be it. This game is pretty cool. We all love anime, and we are Miss Checkpoints, and we're out. Long live anime.
Animes for jerks.
Peace.